Welcome to Coach Bennett's podcast, where every run has a purpose, where kindness is hardcore, where this is about running, and this is not about running, where every starting line is a finish line in disguise, where rambling still gets you where you need to be, where pineapple will never ruin your pizza, and the sodas, adult and not adult kind, are always cold, and where there is room on the starting line for everybody. I'm Coach Bennett. Thank you for letting me be a part of your day. Let's get started. Welcome to a very special Coach Bennett's podcast. That's right. This is Coach Bennett's podcast, NXN edition. Now, you may be wondering, what is NXN? It's Nike Cross Nationals, and we're going to go over that. You may be wondering, well, when is NXN? Well, Nike Cross Nationals is this Saturday, December 2nd. You may be wondering, where is NXN? Well, it's at Glendiveer Golf Course in Portland, Oregon. You may be wondering, why is NXN? Now, that's a weird way of phrasing the question, but I know what you mean. Why? Because this sport needed a national championship. It's the cross-country national championship for high school runners, which means the top 22 girls teams, the top 22 boys teams, the top 50 girls running individually, the top 50 individual boys, they all have one race. There's a girls championship, a boys championship, 5,000 meters. At the end of the day, we've got a team national champion on the girls side and the boys side, and we've got a girls individual national champion and a boys individual national champion. It is, without a doubt, my favorite race of the year. NXN is my favorite meet, and we will go into all of the details, where it came from, a little bit of the history. We're going to talk about how to watch it, what to look out for, what's going on during this race, and why it is like no other race, other than maybe the NCAA cross-country championships. Anyway, the point is, it is an absolute celebration of the sport of cross-country and running, and I highly recommend that you tune in on Saturday because it's streamed live so you can watch it. It's an absolute blast. Like I said, without a doubt, no strings attached, this is my favorite race of the year. And just like any other great competition, race, gathering in this sport, it will help you become a better, more complete runner and athlete if you're a fan of the sport, if you support the sport, if you celebrate the sport, if you share the sport. And NXN's another opportunity for you to do all of those things. So let's start with a little background, which is my code for a history lesson. The first year of NXN was 2004, and technically it wasn't even the first year of NXN because it was called NTN, Nike Team Nationals. Now, before we get into that, I want to talk about pre-2004. So when I was in high school in the 90s, I'm a child of the 80s and the 90s, there was no national championship for teams for cross-country. Now, cross-country is a team sport, an absolute, complete team sport. So every cross-country meet you've seen where teams are involved, this is how it works. Your top 5 runners that cross the finish line, their places are added up. That's the team score. Now, the team with the lowest score wins. The 6 and 7 runners, because 7 runners can run at the varsity level in a meet, the 6 and 7 runners won't count for their own team score, but they can count in other teams' scores. Why? Well, because they can be in front of other teams' top 5 runners, which means they can displace other teams' runners. So you could have a team that goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? Now that team's top 5 runners are going to count for their team's score, which means they're going to score 15 points. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 is 15. But 6 and 7, even though they don't count in their own team's score, that other team may go 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, okay? Which means their score is 8 plus 9 plus 10 plus 11 plus 12. So their 6 and 7 runners on that first team, they bumped up the score of that second place team, which means everyone counts. Everyone who takes the line matters, which is what is so great about cross country. Because when you're coaching cross country, when you're a fan of cross country, every athlete that goes by matters. No one's on the bench. No one is on the sideline. Everyone that makes it to the starting line has a purpose during that run to the finish line, which is what makes it so powerful. Now, a lot of athletes running may not look at it this way, which is, I think, one of the reasons why sometimes it's easy for a runner to give up when they don't feel like they have a higher purpose to be running for. The team in cross country is the higher purpose. Athletes that have a team to run for are less likely to give up on themselves because they don't have that luxury. It is a luxury to quit on yourself and nothing else matter. The only person you're letting down is yourself because that's the only person you are running for. But if you're on a cross-country team, no, you don't have that luxury. You can't quit on yourself because quitting on yourself is quitting on the team because you have a purpose, because everyone that takes the starting line has a purpose. It is badass. It is powerful. It is inspirational, which is one of the reasons why I love cross country so much. Now, when I was an athlete in high school, there was no team national championship. I went to high school in the 90s. It's part of the reason why I'm so unbelievably cool. And early 90s, late 90s, it's a little shaky. But if you were an early 90s high school kid, yeah, I mean, it's very hard for you not to be basically awesome. Anyway, more on that on a different episode. But there was no team national championship. What we relied on was a magazine called Harrier Magazine, which was put out by a gentleman named Mark Bloom. And I think it was every 2 weeks it would come out. And on the back cover, there would be the top 25 high school girls teams in the nation and the top 25 boys teams in the nation, ranked by Mr. Bloom based on results he had seen. And that was basically what we looked at for the national rankings. Now, I can't even begin to tell you how many conversations on runs we had year after year after year talking about, arguing about a mythical national championship race. What if you could get the best teams in the United States on one starting line and get to duke it out? So we don't have to rely on the Harrier rankings, which were so awesome and such a gift to us, because the Harrier rankings, what they really did was they kind of localized, or they were the first really localization of the sport that was at a national level. It was the first time that we would look and say, what we're doing actually matters to what athletes in Illinois are doing, or California are doing, or New Mexico are doing. And they're looking to see what we're doing because we affect their rankings, they affect our rankings. And it really brought, like this idea that the world of cross country in the United States was a small community, which is hard to do. This is like pre-internet, okay? Now, I think the internet has made it even more local. Like the United States is just local. Like what you're doing on one side of the country is immediately known on the other side of the country, and it's inspiring athletes on the middle of the country to work harder, race smarter, and I love that. That's one of the reasons why this sport has just taken off. So the dream was really, what if we could just have a national championship and basically get all these teams that were on the back of the Harrier magazine together, so we don't have this argument of, oh, we should be 8th, we should be 5th, we're the best team in the country, that team in the country is, always ranked too high. All right, end the conversation, let's just all meet. Now, the idea of this was so fantastical that I don't think any of us really believed it would ever happen. And then in 2004, it did. Now, the first version of NXN was known as NTN, Nike Team Nationals, and that took place in 2004. And basically, it was invitation. Now, that's changed. So 2004, 2005, I believe 2006, I should have looked this up. It was either 2007 or 2008. There was the first regional championships. So we'll go into basically what happened. In the first few editions of NTN, Nike Team Nationals, the top 20 teams, I believe, were invited out to Portland to race, which was mind-blowing that this was actually going to happen. The top 20 girls teams, the top 20 boys teams took the line, duked it out. Who wins? At the end of the day, there's a team national champion, which is just what we all wanted decade after decade. Years, miles, minutes of conversations of what would happen if you got all of the best teams together on one course. Well, they did it. And it was at this place called Portland Meadows, which is a horse track. So on the inside of the horse track, they built a cross-country course. And they put in some loop-de-loops, like some rollers and stuff. And, it was a fun course, a sloppy course, basically an artificial kind of cross-country course. But it worked. And over the first couple of years, what they started to do was say, okay, well, we've got these teams that are being invited. Maybe we should invite individuals as well. So they started to invite individuals. Okay, so they went out and they invited some of the best individual runners that weren't a part of these top 20 teams to race at NTN. Eventually, NTN turns into NXR and NXN. Now, NXR are Nike Cross Regionals. So I believe it was 2008. There were 8 regional championships around the country. So there's a Northeast, there's a Northwest, there's a Southwest, there's a Southeast, there's a South, so on and so forth. The point is, you have these 8 regional championships, and the top 2 boys teams, the top 2 girls teams at that NXR, that regional championship, they qualify automatically. The top 5 individuals that are not a part of a team that qualified, they qualify as individuals. So each region will have 4 teams, 2 boy teams, 2 girl teams, and then 10 individuals, 5 girls, 5 boys that qualify for Nike Cross Nationals. California, because their state meet is so late in the year, they are their own region. So the top 2 teams based on team average, they qualify, and the top 5 individuals, fastest times, boys and girls. So you now have, with an asterisk, 9 regions, inclusive of California. New York has their own region as well. But you have these 9 regions. So you have 18 boys teams, 18 girls teams that qualify automatically. You have 45 runners, 5 runners from each region, that qualify automatically on the boys' side, automatically on the girls' side. And then the week before NXR, a committee chooses 4 wildcard teams on the boys' side, 4 wildcard teams on the girls' side, as well as 5 wildcard individuals on the boys' side and 5 wildcard individuals on the girls' side. And they also make it. So at the end of the day, you got 22 boys' teams, 22 girls' teams, 50 individuals in both races. That is your NXN championship field. And they make their way out to Portland to race. Now, as you can imagine, these are the best teams in the country. These are the best individuals in the country. They are used to racing at a high level, but if you think about it, they're also used to just dominating. I mean, this is the best team in, let's say, the South. Well, most of the races they run, they're just going to crush everybody. You've got the best individuals in the country. Most of the races they run, there's only a handful of people that can ever stay up with them. Then you get to NXN, and you're sharing the line with 21 other teams that only know what you know, which is in basically every race, we're the best team. We utterly dominate. If you're an individual, you're sharing the line with dozens and dozens of kids who also know what you know. I'm one of the best cross-country runners in the country. But what's different about NXN is you're now sharing the line with all of those kids, which is what makes NXN such a chaotic, crazy, epic, out of control, glorious race. Because you have so many great athletes and so many great teams sharing a starting line and then all having to compete over the same 5,000 meters at the same time. So then what are you looking for as a fan when you're watching? Well, there's a lot that you're looking for. As I mentioned, it's a national championship. So there is a race to be the individual national champion. So you've got that race occurring during NXN. But you also have first team, second team, third team All-American, which are those top 7 runners, first team All-American. 8 through 14, second team All-American. 15 through 21, third team All-American. So you have that race as well. You've got athletes trying to win those accolades, earn those honors. But it's a team sport. You also have this team championship that's going on. There can only be one national championship team. So you have these races going on, and everyone usually has a different race plan. Do you go out hard and then try to hold on? Do you go out relatively easy and slide up? Well, all of these are great, tactics and strategies to have, but the course is this other actor in this. What is the course going to be like? Is it going to be wet? Is it going to be slippery? Is it going to be incredibly muddy? Is it going to be raining that day? Is it going to be relatively dry and quick? These are the things that are going to affect your race plan. But not only that, the field is, as far as I'm concerned, the biggest actor of it all. Because you have athletes that are not used to running with this many great athletes. You have teams not used to running with this many great teams, as I mentioned, 2 minutes ago? But when it plays out, it's very interesting. Because when I was coaching, and we had a bunch of teams, I was lucky enough to help coach at the national championship, you're sitting down the night before, and you're talking to a group of unbelievably talented, hardworking, successful runners, that many of which, over the course of this past season, have not been outside of the top 20 in any race. Now, if you're consistently in the top 20 in a race, it means more than likely you can see the leader of the race for most of the race. You can count the amount of people that are in front of you. You can single people out. If you're in 20th place, you only have 19 people in front of you. You can single out. You can see different teams and say, okay, 5 people ahead of me is a runner from our rival team, and there's an individual up there, and maybe his team is not in the hunt to win the championship, so I don't so much have to worry about him in the team points. Like, there's all of these different things that you can do when the field is very thin up front, because there just aren't that many people. You're not running a race where you're in 100th or 150th if you're on one of these teams or you're one of these individuals that's so extraordinary. At NXN, throw all that out the window, because you're looking at your athletes and you're telling your athlete who's, like I said, never been outside of the top 20, hey, at halfway, if you're in 100th, as our 5th runner, we're winning the national championship. It's very hard to get that lesson across to a young athlete. Don't be overwhelmed by the fact that you have 100 athletes in front of you. And to be honest with you, your 5th runner, it's probably more. So don't panic. You're going to feel like you're out of control. You're going to think that you're having a terrible race, when in reality, this is the best race you've ever had in your life. This is one starting line with all of the great runners, not just the great runners from Utah, not just the great runners from Texas, not just the great runners from Massachusetts, not only the great runners from the Northeast, not only the great runners from the Midwest. These are all of the great runners from all of the United States. So when you're in 100th at halfway, it's as if you're in 15th at your state championship. And if I told you you're at 15th at halfway, you'd say I'm exactly where I need to be to try to finish 10th or 9th. But if you don't have this understanding, when you find yourself in 100th place, you think you're having a terrible race. And if you think you're having a terrible race, you're more likely to make some really bad decisions. Like, I need to push really hard right now, as opposed to settle in and stay focused. Or I'm going to give up, as opposed to I'm all in. So it's really fascinating to see the teams that can handle this and the teams that can't. The athletes that can handle this and the athletes that can't. And with that, it also means which coaches prepared their team for this and which coaches did not. So there's a lot that's going on. And same thing with the individuals. It's not just the race to be national champions. top 3 get to come onto the podium. So there are teams that want to podium. But there are teams that are saying, can we be top 5 in the country? No team in our state or our region has been top 5 in the country. Or can we be top 10 in the country? Or, we're coming in and maybe we're being picked to be 20th. Can we be top 15? There's all of these strategies that each team has. And alongside those strategies are goals they hope the strategy brings them to. So you have all of these different things. You have teams that go out hard and try to hold on. So you're seeing them, maybe have a very low score at the first, 1K. And then slowly that score is picking up because they put themselves in a position to say, we're just going to die less than everybody else. You have other teams that their score keeps coming down. But did they go out too conservatively or did they nail it? And they're going to end with their lowest score and they're going to reach their goal. There's all of these things that are going on. And like I said, factored into this is not just the rest of the field that you're competing with, but you're competing with the course and the conditions of the course and the weather. It's absolutely fascinating. So those are the types of things that you want to be looking for. And if you want to take your runner level to the next level, what you can do is you can do a little bit of research on the top teams. Now, I'm going to give you kind of the point of view from a fan and then from the coaches and the athletes. So from a fan perspective, all you need to do is check out some of the rankings. There's rankings on DieStat and RunnerSpace, which are 2 websites that do a great job celebrating the sport. MileSplit's another one that does rankings. So there's a lot of different places you can go to check out who the top teams are, and you'll see. And for the most part, they're pretty sound. They're pretty good, and you'll see who the top teams are. Now they're going to be running as clubs at the national championships. So some of them will be going by the name of the town that the high school is in. And you can find out what their club name is and all of that, so you can follow them. But like, for instance, you've got on the girls' side all year, the 2 of the top 3 teams pretty much every single week have been teams from Colorado. So you've got this interesting kind of dynamic that you could potentially have 2 or 3, because I think there's a third Colorado team on the girls' side that's there, competing for a national championship. And it's like, well, that's a little extra incentive, right? Like, we can win NXN, and the teams that we really have to beat are the teams from our own state that we've been competing against. So you have this national stage, but it's like a state rivalry, which is pretty badass. But the top girls teams, it's spread out. You've got teams from Colorado, Texas, Utah, California. You've got a great team coming out of New Jersey. So there's a lot of intrigue, and then there's a lot of kind of regional respect for each other, but also regional rivalry, because you're also kind of cheering for the other teams in your region to do that. So it could be worth your while to kind of look and see, and maybe you've got some type of a connection to a certain state or a certain town that has a team that has qualified, or a region where you can kind of go in and be cheering for, whether it's the teams from a certain region, teams from a certain state, or the teams from a certain town, which just, I think, makes it a little bit more fun when you're cheering for people. It doesn't mean you have to be cheering against anybody, but you can be cheering for certain teams, certain athletes. It's the same thing on the individual level. So on the girls' side, wide open, and you've got a lot of different states and a lot of different regions represented. It's interesting because on the boys' side, there's a similar dynamic because 2 of the top teams are from the state of Utah. So again, you've got this like built-in state rivalry and probably state pride, and then around them, it's all over the place. You've got a great team from Texas. You've got a fantastic team from New Jersey that I'm biased for a number of different reasons. You've got a great team from Florida, Idaho, Oregon, California. They're all represented in there. So there's this great opportunity for you as a fan if you just spend a little bit of time, and I'll have links to all of this. I'll have links to the rankings. I'll have some links to some stories about NXN. I'll have links to how you can watch it because, like I said, it's going to be streamed, and it's going to be streamed for free, so you can watch it on Runner Space. There's all these different things that you can do. And by the way, my social media is going to be littered with stuff from NXN because I'm going to be heading back to Nike on Thursday and basically doing NXN stuff Thursday and Friday and then all day Saturday. So just, get ready because I'm going to be celebrating it as much as I possibly can. But check out the rankings to have a little bit of fun. Now, when you watch it, there's going to be scores that they're going to show you at different parts of the course, okay? So you're going to see the individuals go through, and then you're going to have these team scores, okay? So you're going to be getting update after update after update. You're going to see how some of the top teams are handling themselves. You're going to see if other teams are sliding up. The one thing they do, which in this situation I'm all for because it makes it exciting, they don't give you the final score. So the race ends, and if it's close, you don't know who wins until they call 3 teams up to the stage, and they announce third place, and everyone cheers and goes crazy. Now there's only 2 teams left, and there's tension. And they say, in second place, runner-up at Nike Cross Nationals 2023, and then they announce the second place team, which is how you announce the national champion. So it's this very, very tense moment. I've been on both sides. I've been on stage where they had us up there, and the team I was helping coach was one of the top 2 teams, and they did not name us second, which means we won. I was also up there when we were one of the last 2 teams, and they announced us first, which means you were second. So I've been up there. I have felt both. I've also been in the crowd when we were, 4th and we were 5th watching and saying, what do we need to do to get back up on that stage or get on that stage? So it's riveting, it's powerful, it's exciting. Now, from the athletes and the coaches' side, this is something maybe you don't think about if you're a fan. I mentioned earlier for a couple of different reasons why or how NXN is so different than other races, and it's the quality of the field. So there's just so many athletes, and they're so good. So from a coaching perspective, you're used to being able to find your athletes, okay? Especially if you're an NXN quality team. You're used to finding your athletes because they're probably up front. There aren't as many athletes, so you can spot them. They're also wearing their uniform. But at the Nike Cross Nationals, they all get different uniforms than they normally wear. So they have different colors. Some of them are representing, you have the individuals that are representing their region, so they're wearing regional colors. So you have like the 5 athletes from the Northeast region are going to be wearing a Northeast uniform. But your team, your club team, your high school team has a different uniform, which means everyone has different uniforms. So you are not used to seeing any of these uniforms, which may seem like, well, what's the big deal? Well, it's not basketball where you're against one other team. It's not global football. You're against one other team. It's not American football. You're against one other team. Softball, baseball. No, you're against 21 other teams, and there are 50 individuals representing 9 different regional teams. That's a lot of different uniforms. And the reason why it matters is because what you're trying to do is find clusters. You're trying to see if you're one of those good teams, where are there a few teams that may have, that's their 2, 3, 4 runners they're running together, or it's chaos because of the colors. There's so many different colors, and you have no affinity for any of the other teams because they're basically disguised in these uniforms. What you also have to realize is it's very difficult for your own team or the team you're cheering for or the team you're coaching or the team you're running on to find teammates because you're used to spending the entire year looking for a specific type of uniform. And it's very hard to find in this massive humanity, 200 plus runners running really fast, really hard, and you're trying to say, wait, okay, what am I looking for? Because the uniform's not the same. So when I coached, the team that I coached, it was all navy shorts, navy top. Like that was it. It was navy, solid navy. So it had like some white trim on like the neck. So from the back, which is the important thing, by the way, coaches, make sure your athletes know what the back of their own jerseys look like, and those teams that maybe you're trying to mark, the back of their jerseys look like. No one cares about the front of the jersey. You're not looking back at anyone. You're looking ahead. So you're trying to find athletes to pass. So know what the back of the jerseys look like. But anyway, so that is an exercise that we used to do. I used to have the athletes like just, okay, check out, the teams that we're focusing on, the teams that we think we're going to be competing against, the teams we're going to be battling for, whatever place we want to get. What does the back of their jerseys look like? Super important. So it just adds to the element of chaos and how hard it is for those athletes, because as cool as the new uniforms are, it does make it harder. And from a coaching perspective, it's really hard to find your athletes. Really hard. So what I used to do when I was coaching, I would find very, very, very quiet places. So I used to have to sometimes really run somewhere where I knew fans weren't going to go, other coaches weren't going to go, family was not going to go. So they weren't maybe the coolest parts of the course, but from a coaching perspective, they were the coolest parts of the course because, one, it's quiet, which means if I yell something, there's a better chance the athlete's going to hear me. But also, I know that the quietest part of the course is where an athlete is more likely to back off or give up because they're not running past their teammates, their family. They don't have the excitement and the euphoria of running through a crowd. People battle, hold on. They have grit during places like that. It's much easier to allow a few people to pass you when no one's watching. It's much easier to take your foot off the gas a little bit when nobody's watching. So I make sure I'm over in those spots, but it's also a spot where I have to be able to see for, let's say, at least 50 meters, who's coming. So I can't be like at a turn where suddenly people turn and I see them, because I need to have more time than normal to spot my athletes, because they're not wearing what I'm used to them wearing. They're wearing a new uniform, which means I need time. So I'm not shocked that, they went by, I didn't see them. Well, yeah, because you were looking for the wrong uniforms. So I need a place where it's quiet and I can see for at least 50 meters, ideally 100 meters, who's coming towards me. So from a coaching perspective, it may mean you're in different places than you normally are, but hey, you got to adjust because every course has its own story. And that's something to also think about as you're watching at Glendoveer Golf Course. Every course has its own story. So I'm not going to get into too many details about the course. I'm just going to give you generalities about these things. So a lot of people will complain about a certain cross-country course. They'll go, this cross-country course is really hard, or this cross-country course isn't really hard, or blah, 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 blah. No course is harder than others. It's just whether or not you're prepared for what the course is giving you. That's what's most important. Where are those quiet parts? Do your athletes know about those quiet parts? Because you can take advantage of those quiet parts as an athlete. Because I just told you what happens when it gets quiet. Athletes are more likely to give up and back off. They're more likely to allow people to pass them without them putting up much of a fight or tagging along. Now, if you know that, you now know two things. You know you need to tell your athletes that so they don't do that, so they're aware of it, they're looking towards it, but also you're letting them know the athletes around them are most likely going to do it, so they can take advantage of those athletes, letting them pass. Because it should be difficult to pass someone in a cross-country race. If you're running a good race, it means you're well-positioned, which means the people around you are more likely than not around your fitness level. So it should be difficult to pass someone and stay in front of someone who basically has the same fitness as you. It's like arm wrestling yourself. That's going to be a struggle, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. That's just a great... I just came up with that, and that's brilliant, by the way. Like, I got to say, most of the stuff I say, you could be like, it's okay, it's average. But arm wrestling yourself, brilliant. So if you know that, and you know during this stage, this is where they're going to have moments of weakness, if I can anticipate that and not have a moment of weakness, I don't have to be any stronger. But if they're going to run weaker, it makes my maintenance stronger. So I can just go by them. And if I can go by them and I can get a couple of seconds on them, a couple of yards during this moment of weakness, this lack of focus that they're going to have for 200 meters, 300 meters, 400 meters, depending on how the course is set up, well, Now we go back to even again because here comes the crowd. So now we're just arm wrestling ourselves again. So that person that spot you 20 meters because they let you go by, it's going to be really hard for them to catch up to you because we're back to equal. So those are those little things from a coaching perspective you're looking at in all these courses. It could be the same thing about like, oh, here's the hill or here's the downhill or the footing's bad here. The more you know, the better. And then you can develop your story of the race plan. This is what we're going to do here. This is where we're going to settle in, because this is the other thing. It's really important when you have a race where you've got so many people that are just as good as you to not panic. And when you panic, everything goes on fast forward. And when you're racing, that's pretty much the worst thing that can happen, because when things go on fast forward, you think you're running faster than you are, which means you think you're giving more of an effort than you are, which means you anticipate or you prepare or you allow for this feeling of exhaustion to come sooner than it should. So if you understand the course and you understand the field and you understand what the strategy is, you're less likely to panic. So as a coach, you're trying to get your athletes to not panic, because if they don't panic, it's not on fast forward, it's at regular speed, or if they're really confident and they really know the strategy and they're really prepared for the course, it can almost seem like it's slowed down. And if you can get the course and the race to feel like it is slowing down, then that means you feel like you're not putting in as much effort, which means mentally you're conserving an effort at the end when you really need to start racing, because that's the thing. You can't race 5,000 meters to 5,000 meters. You have to get your athletes to do certain chunks, and you want them to be running hard, running in control, and if they can do that really, really intelligently, then ideally, maybe they only have to race the last 1,000 meters. But if you feel like you're out of control, if you're panicking, then you're racing for 5,000 meters, and guess what? You can't do that, which is why you see people just blow up the last 2K, the last half of the 5K, or just the last K. It doesn't matter. Eventually, it just becomes too much, and I can't do this. So these are the things that are going on as I'm watching it. I hope going into this kind of detail actually makes your viewing experience more fun. I hope giving you the links to the top teams and giving you the links to the top individuals, because it is so exciting. It's so much fun to see these incredible young athletes that have dedicated so much time to this sport and to their teammates and their community to have really a worthy stage to show just how extraordinary they are. And I think that's one of the great things about NXN. It has elevated the sport nationally to such a level that if you're ever wondering, like, well, how did distance running get so much better over the last 20 years? Well, I would say Exhibit A is NXN. I would also say the internet, those places like RunnerSpace and DieStat and MileSplit have done an extraordinary job celebrating the sport and celebrating these young athletes. And as a result, it's so healthy at this level that you're seeing these performances from 20 years ago. You know, these athletes are now, the athletes that ran in 2004, you know, the seniors, they're 38. So it lets you know that those athletes now that are running that are 28 and 26, like, this has been their reality. It wasn't my reality. My reality was this doesn't exist and we wish it did. And now it exists. And you're seeing the payoff. You're seeing more and more kids be a part of cross country and track and field, which means more and more young adults are experiencing this sport, experiencing what it means to be on a team, experiencing what it means to challenge themselves and experience success. And if they're being coached the right way and they're having culture developed the right way, then they're ending their time in high school loving what they were a part of. And whether they continue to do it in college or not, they know they can always come back to a starting line. They know there's always a place on the starting line for them, and they can do extraordinary things on the other side of it. So, there it is. You know, that's the NXN special episode, and I hope you tune in. I hope you watch. If you have questions about it, please let me know. Please share the podcast with high school coaches, with high school athletes, with maybe teammates you had in high school, because this is really a celebration of our sport of cross country. It's a celebration of our sport of running, and I think, like I said earlier, if we can share the sport, we're celebrating the sport, and if we're celebrating the sport, we're saving the sport. So thank you for listening. And like I said, this is a special edition, so the normal edition of Coach Bennett's podcast will be coming out on Thursday, so I got double duty this week. It's worth it because I love NXN so much. So enjoy the races, have fun, be a fan, support the sport, and until that next Coach Bennett's podcast, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and I'll meet you on another starting line. Thank you so much for listening to Coach Bennett's podcast today. And if you're not already following or subscribed to the podcast on whatever platform you're listening, well, I really wish you would because it helps a lot. Also, check out the show notes because you'll find a link to Coach Bennett's newsletter, as well as all the social media sites that I'm on. Places like Threads and Facebook and Instagram and Mastodon and YouTube, and even the artist formerly known as Twitter. Whatever that dumpster fire is called today, you'll find a link to it because I'm on there. Thank you so much again for listening, and until next time, take care of yourself.